You're with 702 and CapeTalk. This is Early Breakfast.
The rising cost of medical aid is pushing more South Africans towards cheaper health insurance options. But what does this shift mean for consumers and the future of private healthcare? Joining me on the line is Damian McHugh. Damian is the Chief Marketing Officer at Momentum Health. Damian, a very good morning and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Africa. Good morning to you and to your listeners.
All right. Reports yesterday indicating that health insurance is growing much faster than traditional medical aid. What does this mean for us?
A couple of things. I think one of the things, it means that more South Africans are getting access to private healthcare cover, which is a good thing. And the other thing is there's affordability issues in the medical scheme industry, and some of the South Africans that are buying those products are buying into health insurance. That has a little bit of a risk because a lot of us think that we're then buying something that's very similar to medical aid. And it may provide some elements of cover that are the same, but it doesn't provide quite a significant amount of cover. So you think you have something that you maybe not, that you don't have. And that's probably one of the risks that the South African consumer who makes that choice needs to understand.
So what are the main differences between a medical aid and health insurance?
There's quite a lot of classes of health insurance, but the main ones now are ones which provide day-to-day cover. So in other words, doctor, dentist, medicine, and they often do that quite well. In fact, many of them very similar to what your medical scheme will provide. The stuff that it often doesn't cover is sometimes chronic medicine at the same level as what a medical scheme provides. And your hospitalization cover is way, way lower than the sort of hospitalization cover, the more comprehensive hospitalization cover you'll get in a medical scheme. Medical schemes by law have to cover, and excuse the terminology, prescribed minimum benefits. In other words, there's a set of benefits that every medical scheme option has to cover. Health insurance doesn't have to cover that. So there's over 270 prescribed minimum benefits. Health insurance don't have to cover those, so you miss all of those potentially. I mean, some of them do have elements of them, but you'd miss the majority of those. And that's one of the risks that many consumers must remember. If I'm going to make the choice of moving from a medical scheme to health insurance, which is better than opting out altogether, is just know that not all of your benefits will be covered.
Is it not upending then the theory, I suppose, around medical aid, where younger, healthier people effectively pay for slightly more senior, more frequently ill people who are on that medical aid scheme? If they're all taking health insurance instead of getting onto a medical aid scheme, it means medical aid becomes expensive for those of us who choose to stay on it, right?
It's exactly what is happening. Look, I don't want to make it sound like health insurance is only growing because of the members that are opting out of medical aid. That's not true. And lots of South Africans, in fact, the vast majority of the ones, particularly in our solution, I can't speak of everybody's, but are people who have never had access to cover before. Now, because that cover is in place for exactly that marketplace, you can imagine then other people are looking and going, hold on a second, but I'm on a medical scheme. I don't need all of that cover. I can move in. But the vast majority of the people that are buying health insurance have never been on cover before. So before we think health insurance is bad and it's taking people away from medical schemes, we must also realize the good that it's doing. But yes, in a medical scheme, as you rightly indicate, we have what we call cross-subsidy. In other words, the healthy pay pay very similar pricing to the sick, and then the sick generally use more. So what we have is most of the healthy people go, why am I paying this premium? I don't need all of this cover. So I can opt out. And that's quite dangerous because, as we know, you would never have enough money in your own accounts if you have a big emergency or, in a car accident, or like you were talking just now, you're driving on your holiday trip up to Johannesburg and something happens to you in the vehicle. And we hope that happens to nobody, but that can cost you $1 million, $2 million, $3 million rand. Now you're on health insurance or you're not on cover at all. So at the very least, the younger people should be thinking about what happens for the stuff that I can't control. And be buying in at least at low option medical schemes so that you're at least covered for those big emergency, big emergency type things. And I think that's what we need to remember as a younger consumer in the South African market. And yes, your premium may be a little bit more inflated, but there's going to come a day when the younger people are cross-subsidizing you as well. So it keeps the market sustainable.
It's good to hear that what this is a factor of more people seeking health insurance as opposed to necessarily ditching medical aid in order for them to go for the cheaper option. Damian, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Damian McHugh is the Chief Marketing Officer at Momentum Health, reflecting on the growing number of people opting for health insurance. That's growing at a much faster rate than medical aid schemes, it appears, according to reports this past weekend.